Back to those people who have been here before. Welcome to our Occupational. I said you can guess why it's called that. It's the same thoughts. Yeah. I want to say hello to those of you joining us on Zoom from the HSC campus. We've got maybe half a dozen people over there. Hi. And also hello to YouTube, because I know you're watching us. I'm Vanessa Gomez-Brake. I'm the Associate Dean of Religious and Spiritual Life here at USC, and I'm delighted that you all came over to the University Religious Center right before it's going to downpour outside and watching the rain clouds come through. I hope you packed your umbrella. So the What Matters to Me and Why series represents a creative solution to an important problem in the university setting. And that is the separation of intellectual life from the personal and the spiritual. What Matters to Me and Why offers the Trojan family an opportunity to hear from USC faculty and administrators in a different way. Rather than lecturing on just an area of expertise or their research, we invite speakers to share their life journey with us. So once a month during this Wednesday lunch hour, we get to listen in as they reflect on the values, beliefs, and motivations that have shaped their lives. And I just said once a month, but actually we're doing 2 a month in March and in April. And so just come back here every 2 weeks and see what we fed in like the physical way and the spiritual way and in all the ways. And the food does change every week in case you're curious. It won't always be, I guess, veggie wraps, but we like to eat good food here as well. So before we get started, I wanted to highlight just a few upcoming events this month. First off, this semester, we have a chaplain intern from the University of the West, which is a Buddhist seminary in Rosemead. He's going to continue his series on the Dhammapada. So if you're interested in exploring the philosophical teachings of the Buddha, which you don't have to be Buddhist to learn about Buddhist philosophical teachings, you can be led by Bhagavata Sravan, who is a monastic monk. And he's here on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. to facilitate that conversation. Additionally, our collaboration with the LGBTQ+ Center continues with Queertuality. That's also on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. And you can find our friends over on the 4th floor of the Student Union. And I believe that one's at 6 p.m. And lastly, we are very much looking forward to Ramadan, which begins this coming Sunday night. So after spring break, our Muslim community is welcome to join us for nightly iftars, the breaking of the fast, right here in the URC courtyard. And that's going to be every night, Monday through Thursdays. And we typically see about 200 students here in the evenings, right as the sun is setting. And so it's quite a community event, and all are welcome, but you do have to register because food runs out. But if you want to make just one night on Ramadan and perhaps try fasting for that day should be March 27th, because our Interfaith Council is going to sponsor the iftar meal that evening, as well as offer an interfaith program that will explore the tradition of fasting from the Baha'i, Buddhist, Jewish, Christian, Sikh, Jain, and of course, Muslim religious perspectives. We have a sign-up sheet at the back, so I hope you'll join our newsletter, or you can follow us on Instagram so you can hear more about upcoming events, as well as register for any free meals here at the Religious Center. All right, that's enough announcements from me. I invite you all now to listen deeply to today's speaker and consider asking a question during our Q&A period, which will be the last 10 minutes of the hour. All right. So at this time, I'd like to invite 2 occupational science students to the floor. And that is Tori Ann Heath and Fatima Zizar to the front, so they can introduce today's special speaker. Hello. It is our absolute honor to introduce Dr. Ashley Uyeshiro Simon, an associate professor of clinical occupational therapy and a remarkable example of kindness and dedication on our campus. She tells her students that you can call her Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu began her academic journey at USC, where she earned her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, followed by a Master of Arts in Occupational Therapy, and ultimately her Doctorate of Occupational Therapy in 2011.
Since then, her professional journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. She has had various publications in research academia, including the American Journal of Occupational Therapy and International Journal of Multiple Sclerosis Care. For 7 years, Dr. Yu graced the USC OT faculty practice with her expertise employing innovative methods such as lifestyle redesign to empower clients facing various challenges, from behavioral health difficulties to chronic conditions like multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease. Her dedication earned her recognition as a National MS Society partner in MS Care, a testament to her profound impact on her clients' lives.
Beyond the clinical work, Dr. Yu has been deeply invested in nurturing and moving the fostering inclusivity campus. As a faculty resident at Burke and Roosevelt College, she not only raised her two daughters, but also embraced her role as a mentor, shaping the lives of countless students and faculty. Through initiatives like Burke Grant Family Dinners and BK Supper Club, she created spaces where diversity is celebrated and provided a lot of thrives. Dr. Yu's commitment to student well-being is further exemplified through her role as the creator and lead professor of OT 100 Thrive, Foundations of Well-Being, a course designed to promote mental health and holistic wellness among undergraduates. Additionally, her teaching and other various courses highlight her belief in the importance of self-care and community building. Dr. Yu's unwavering commitments to creativity, community, mentorship, and compassion showcases what it truly means to be an occupational therapist, a friend, an educator, a mother, and an overall role model. Through her tireless dedication to uplifting others and fostering a sense of belonging, she exemplifies the very essence of what it means to be a Trojan.
We've both been lucky enough to be in Dr. Yu's classroom multiple times, and we couldn't introduce her without sharing how she's made a personal impact on each of us. So as you all know, college is a time where a lot of change occurs, both in the inner world and outer world. And throughout all the changes that I've undergone in my USC experience, Dr. Yu has been one of the only sources of constant for me. I've taken every single class she teaches at USC and lost count of how many times I visited her office. And that's no accident. She's given me so many tools to both survive and thrive, and many quotes that I still keep for guidance. Things like you don't have to necessarily have a support system, you just have to feel supported. I come to her with everything from questions about manifestation in a capitalistic society, to finding a community at USC, to bearing the loss of someone I loved and trying to stay afloat in school while grieving. She was there for me through the most difficult moments of my life. And we all know how far and few in between that is. For someone like Dr. Yu, there would never be enough words to truly do her justice. I have so much respect for her because of the way she is always innovating to help her students learn, but also for the way she extends her compassion so patiently and so freely without expecting anything in return. And she does this kind of work every single day because that is who she is. She's so good at helping her students learn, but really, she changes students' lives.
My connection with Dr. Yu is a personal one, as her impact on my life has been nothing short of transformative. When I first met her in an OT introductory course, I had expressed my curiosity about wanting to explore topics surrounding autism and neurodevelopmental disabilities, despite being a pre-law student. Without hesitation, she immediately took the time to understand my interests and aspirations, and ultimately connected me to USC Chan's Inspire Lab, where I spent a year expanding my knowledge and helping around. But most importantly, understanding my personal relationship with my mentor who has autism. Since then, Dr. Yu has been a constant source of guidance and support, despite being on fully different career paths. Her compassion and natural willingness to make every person she interacts with feel seen and valued has helped me navigate my own issues of confidence and identity. As a low-income, first-generation student with a daughter's son doctorate in immigrants, I have often grappled with imposter syndrome and struggled to find my place on campus. It was through her lessons on embracing personal narratives and storytelling I was able to begin understanding who I was and what mattered to me. She taught me that the differences in people's experiences at USC opens new ways of thinking, and it is important to pay attention to it in the spaces we occupy now, and will do so moving forward in their lives. Ultimately, Dr. Yu taught me to connect with others on a deeper level, foster meaningful relationships, and drive positive change beyond our USC campus. In closing, while our personal experiences with Dr. Yu have been deeply meaningful, they are just a glimpse into the profound impact she has had on countless individuals within Arcade University's community. From current students to alumni, her warmth, empathy, and dedication are celebrated by all who have had the privilege of crossing paths with her. Not only does she excel in her professional endeavors, but she also effortlessly bridges connections and fosters meaningful relationships among us all. Hence why here are two of us giving this introduction.
We have no doubt that after hearing her speak today, you too will be touched by her passion, kindness, and unwavering commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. So it is with great pleasure and honor that we introduce to you Dr. Ashley Uyeshiro Simon.
Uh-oh. Oh no. Okay. I was not prepared for that. Thank you, you two, Torianne and Fatima. That was awesome. And I've never been introduced by students before, and that hits very different. So thank you for that. That was the talk. That's it. You can go home. We're done. Okay. Thank you to the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life for inviting me to give this talk. I've been at USC for almost 13 years, and this is like on my bucket list of like things I want to have done. So like, this is such an honor. And then thank you especially to you, Vanessa, Associate Dean Vanessa Gomez-Brake, I'm sorry, because you come and talk to our Thrive students every single semester, and I feel like it's time I return the favor. So, so thank you for having me. I love this question, what matters to me and why. I teach occupational therapy courses about well-being, about thriving, about self-care behaviors, right? All these wonderful things. And so as I sat down to write this talk, I was like, I better have a good answer for this, right? Like, I feel like I should know this. And actually, I was very happy to find that it was, in fact, rather easy for me to answer this question. So I'll tell you a couple of stories that sort of shaped what matters to me and why. And then I want to spend some time talking a little bit about how what matters plays out in my daily life, okay? Also, sorry, okay. My colleagues know that I cry if I'm like below a 4.5 or above a 7. Either of those, I'm just like in tears. And I like it, it's fine. All right, so growing up, I was lucky enough to have parents who loved and supported me, who sacrificed in order to provide me and my sister with a privileged upbringing. They were sort of the epitome of like the American dream, right? They used education and grit as a means to access a better life. I went to Punahou, which if you know anybody from Hawaii, they usually went to Punahou, Iolani, or Kamehameha. It's the three biggest schools, the private schools on Oahu. And my Punahou experience overall was wonderful. That school is amazing. But, you know, being a large elite prep school that it was certainly not immune to some of the more terrifying results of like competitive, privileged teenage social dynamics. So starting in, I think, elementary school, I was bullied all the way, you know, the first comment I can remember is like a fat shaming comment, it like lined up for lunch in like the kindergarten line, all the way through middle school, and then well into my junior year of high school by this same group of like popular girls that everybody recognized as social royalty for some unknown reason. I'm still trying to decipher why popular kids are even popular, right? I don't know if it's like boobs or clothes or what, but who knows, right? It was very much like Mean Girls, like a Mean Girls experience, but with like palm trees and humidity. It wasn't very cute. And you'd think that because of this experience, this continued experience, I would have tried to stay away, like as far away from those girls as I possibly could. But actually, you'll see this is a theme throughout this whole talk. Middle school Ashley, high school Ashley does not make good choices. And instead of trying to stay away, I actually tried my darndest to be a part of that popular group. I tried to break in because of the social clout that I thought it would afford me, right? I thought that if I were part of that group, I would feel important too. Turns out, trying to get in with the popular kids does not make them like you more. Fancy that. And the bullying got so bad that at one point in my junior year, I have very specific memories of them purposefully running away when I came near. They had secret signs that they would, or that they could communicate to each other that would indicate their distaste, right? When I was around. And they just thought of me as like a blister on their social skin. And when I reflect on this experience, I can see it like a movie that plays out in my mind, right? I can watch it like a movie. And I used to watch this movie and cringe, right? But I feel like enough time has passed now where I can watch that movie and instead of cringing, I can feel myself sort of mentally and emotionally embrace that poor kid that was just really socially awkward and just wanted to feel valued, seen, and appreciated, right? And I think to a certain extent, we can all kind of embrace that child in ourselves, right? Like, you made a bad choice, but it was for a reason, right? And as I reflect on this memory, you know, that's what we're all trying to do, right? We all just want to feel valued, seen, and appreciated. Some of us are lucky enough to inherently feel this in ourselves. If you know my colleague Diego Lopez, he is a walking example of inherent self-worth. I don't know how he does it. But others of us need to go to, or do go to great lengths, you know, professionally, aesthetically, financially, powerfully, interpersonally even. Some of us go to great lengths to get this validation from others, right? So, story 2, fast forward 15 years. I've just given birth to my first girl, because my partner is here with the mustache. Our first girl, Kennedy. This also is like a snapshot in time in my head. It's like 3 a.m. I'm doing this activity called breastfeeding, which is actually just nipple torture. If it were accurately named, no one would ever do it, so that's why they just call it breastfeeding. But it's torture. And I'm sleep deprived because the nurses tell you you should wake up every 3 hours to feed your child, right? And with child number 1, it's like, follow the rules, right? And even when I sleep, it's an anxious sleep because TikTok reminded me that sudden infant death syndrome is a thing. And so now that's just replaying in my mind. And it's just, you know, the sleep is anxious, the waking hours are anxious, everything is anxious. And then on top of that, my grandfather, who I had just like the most special relationship with, he had passed about 2 weeks after Kennedy was born, which meant the possibility of having them meet had like just slipped out of reach. And it was because he was in Hawaii on hospice and I was in LA with a newborn that couldn't travel yet. So I was grieving the loss of him and I was also grieving the loss of the relationship that they would never have. So there I am, you know, my body is a wreck. I'm not sure what day it is, but I am sure that every decision that I'm making is the wrong one, right? Because that's the narrative in my head. And yet, even with all this physical and emotional chaos, I finished Kennedy, I was putting her back down in her crib, and I remember looking at her tiny little face, and in that moment of extreme unwellness, which is, we're just gonna say is a word for today. In that moment of extreme unwellness, I remember feeling the most amazing amount of clarity that I had ever experienced about what actually matters in life, right? All of my emails that were unanswered, my promotion dossier that I needed to do, the house that was a mess, all of those things that usually took up so much of my brain space, they got recalibrated in that moment. As I realized, like, none of those things are even remotely as important to me as making sure this little human felt loved, felt valued, felt appreciated, felt worthy. And you know what the wild thing is? This is what I tell my students sometimes. Every one of us started out as a little baby, just like Kennedy, right? Every one of us started out with a tiny little face, deserving of all the love in the world, with inherent value and worth, right? So we're gonna do a little exercise. I want you to pretend like you're holding a newborn baby, right? Oh, so cute. Could be yours, but if you're not a baby person, it's like your friends or something like that. That's fine, I respect that. I respect the no-kid generation, let me tell you. So now, this is the exercise. You're gonna look that baby in the face, you're gonna tilt your head, and you're gonna say, all you do is consume resources, time, and energy. You haven't really contributed like anything meaningful to society yet. You don't have a job. You didn't get the right internship, right? You might be failing out of school. You don't actually say this because it's dramatic. Don't say that. You would never say that, right? You would never say that to a little newborn baby in your arms. Because when we're babies, or when we see a baby, we recognize the inherent value and worth of that baby's life without qualifications. They don't have to have done anything to deserve our love, right? But these babies grow up. And society tells them exactly that, right? If you don't get good grades, if you don't get into a good college, if you don't get that internship or that job or that salary or that house with a yard, if you don't have poreless, flawless, light-colored skin and an awesome nose bridge, right? If you aren't the best at what you do, if you aren't in a leadership position, then somehow you are less worthy. Somehow you have less value, right? And to me, the worst part, the part that scares me the most, is that at some point, that baby grows up into an adult, looks themselves in the mirror, and says those exact things, right? They've been told these things so many times, in so many ways, by so many probably unwitting people, that they start to believe those narratives are true. That is so messed up. I was gonna drop an F-bomb, but then I was like, this is the religious center, and this is gonna be on YouTube, so I'm not gonna do that. But I would like to have dropped the F-bomb. So as Torianne and Fatima said, I worked for over 7 years as an OT in mental health. I've been teaching college students for the past 6 years, trying to help them relearn how to make learning fun, because I feel like at some point we learn that learning is not fun. It's very serious, right? So I feel like I know what's coming for my daughters, right? By the way, I have 2 now. I don't want to leave out, hello, Maya. Like, I would like to acknowledge the fact that I have 2 daughters. This was, everything that I just said about the first one applies to the second one too. Second child syndrome. But I know, I feel like I know what's coming for my daughters. I know that my daughters are going to be told a lot of things repeatedly, and whether they choose to believe those things or not will dictate a lot of how they experience the world, right? They're going to be told that they are only worth what they can achieve, and that they get bonus points if those achievements are highly valued by other people. They're going to be told that compassion and empathy and all those wonderful things are things to be given to other people, but not to themselves, because average is unacceptable, especially at USC. And hard work is really just a euphemism for toxic grind culture, right? My daughters are gonna grow up in this social media world where even the slightest mistake can mean social ostracism. So they'll need to censor themselves, be wary of their friends, and not do anything that could make others judge them negatively, because judgment is coming, right? My daughters are gonna be taught that failure is okay in elementary school, but it quickly becomes something that separates the haves and have-nots. Failure cuts off access to opportunities, so they'd better not fail, because the costs are too high. And part 2 of this talk, which is called Reforming Our Educational System, will be out in the courtyard after this. And my daughters are going to be told that because they are girls, until they tell me otherwise, their voices are inherently not as important as their male counterparts. And they can be leaders, but they can't be too assertive, especially as half Asian women, because people will think that they're just bitchy or rude, right? This is what matters to me. Fighting the narratives that society instills in us and helping everyone see their own intrinsic self-worth, helping everybody to feel valued and appreciated. That's what matters to me. So now I kind of know what matters to me, but as an occupational therapist, I always got to ask the question, well, what are you going to do about it, right? OTs are about like doing, right? We define occupation as any meaningful activity that occupies your time. What do you do with these reflections? What do you do with the realizations that you've come to? So, how do we help people see their intrinsic self-worth? How am I supposed to raise 2 people to feel loved, valued, and appreciated and inherently worthy in a world that basically tells them the opposite, right? How are they supposed to resist all these messages? That's the end of my talk. I'm just kidding. That would be terrible, right? Chaos, goodbye. So, to me, and your answer could be different and probably is different, but to me, how do we resist, right? The answer is the same way that resistance has always been done. It starts with you and me. It starts with meaningful interpersonal relationships and discussions and reflections, and it grows to a collective push to change that social narrative. If enough of us move in the same direction at the same time, we can push that narrative, right? In occupational therapy, we talk a lot about storytelling and story making. And you heard a little bit of that in the intro, so you paid attention in class, oh my God. So storytelling is making sense of what has already happened in the past, right? Understanding why we make certain choices or why we made certain choices, ascribing meaning to our personal histories. I just told you some stories that shaped me. And as I look back, I can clearly see how being bullied and having kids led me to feel this passion for helping people realize their intrinsic worth, and to feel appreciated as they are, right? And those experiences also led me to be able to empathize deeply with people, to want to understand who they are and what they've been through. And honestly, I feel like those experiences also taught me to be able to suspend my own judgments for a hot moment, right? As I learned more about people. So that's storytelling. You heard the story, I've made sense of it in my mind, right? Story making, on the other hand, is the creation of stories that will be enacted in the future. We are all in the middle of our own unfolding stories. And to me, the most wonderful thing is that our unfolding stories are completely intertwined with one another, right? Could be the person next to you, could be your classmate, could be your colleague. So as I think about what stories I am making for the future, in order to change the narrative for my kids, for myself, for each other, I think for me, it really boils down to 3 things, 3 ways that I am story making right now. So first, I want my story to be about what matters most to me, not what others have told me I should care about. And I've spent a lot of time to reckon and to come to the conclusion that this isn't selfish, it's authentic. And if we all started doing this, I think things would change drastically for the better, right? So that's the first thing. That's the first story that I'm trying to make. Second, I want my story to be about radical compassion. If we're gonna start resisting societal norms of grind culture and perfectionism and all that stuff, we have to expect counter-resistance, right? People who judge us for not answering our emails within 24 hours, and if you've ever emailed me, you know that I am not that person. And I'm sorry, but it's just, that's not who I am. People who tell us your liberal arts major isn't going to get you a job, which is completely untrue. I love you, Dornsife. Our own minds will even give us resistance as we try to change our habits of thought, or as we try to change the ways that we talk to ourselves, as we try to unlearn a lot of these things that we say in the mirror, right? So in order to deal with this counter resistance, I think that our lives that we're making have to be lived with radical compassion, to understand each other without the need to agree, but to actually see the humanity in the person and to spend that time to understand who they are and what they've been through. But more importantly, and these are the harder lessons that I feel like I've learned more recently, I think we have to have radical compassion for ourselves, right? Taking a break before we tumble to the brink of exhaustion and our bodies break down, having forgiveness for ourselves when things fall through the cracks, because they always will, removing that shadow of self-imposed guilt that always follows me as I engage in self-care or spend time relaxing with my family, right? Thinking, I could be doing this, I could be more productive, right? So removing that shadow, that kind of radical compassion can change a life, I think. It's changed mine. And then third, I want my story to be about meaningful connections, surrounding myself with people that remind me of my own inherent self-worth, especially in the times when I forget. And I want to give that love back tenfold. I want to pour that love and affirmation into my kids, into my partner, into my family, into my colleagues at work. I love his mustache, by the way. You want to come up for the camera? I'm just kidding. And the reason why I'm here at USC, I want to pour that love and affirmation into my students. Looking at my students now, I'm going to try really hard not to cry again. You are going to be the bosses of my kids one day, I hope, because you're all nice. You're going to be the bosses of my kids one day. You're going to be in charge of the teams, the policies, the cultures that will affect my kids' lives and the lives of others in numerous ways, right? If you value yourselves, if you feel appreciated, you are going to be great leaders and supervisors and coworkers and wonderful human beings, right? And you'll treat my kids accordingly. You're why I come to work every day. You're my why, right? And that's why I give you candy and strawberries all the time from the farmer's market, because it's just like gift giving is my love language. So, in conclusion, I had a great time writing this reflection. I hope that you walk away with something useful or something that you're reflecting on too. I encourage you all, sort of like Vanessa did at the beginning, I encourage you all to answer this question: what matters to me and why, right? And I especially want you and welcome you to share your answers with me, if you so choose, over coffee or tea or boba or lunch or whatever you decide. But I invite you to share those answers with me anytime, because I want to hear them. So thank you for listening. Happy to take questions. Oh, sure. I'll do it.
Well, it is award season, and I don't have an Oscar, but this is one of my favorite talks. In order to do Q&A, I was hoping, just so everyone can hear us really well, if you wouldn't mind just coming up to speak into the and then we'll hand it back to Ashley when she answers. So who has a question they would like to ask? And if you could introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Hi. Oh, is this working?
Hi. Long time no see.
Hi. I'm a colleague of Ashley's. I'm a faculty member at USC Chan. So I was thinking about the societal piece that you're talking about, and then also as a daughter of immigrants with like the American dream, like that is also such a felt, modeled experience. And I heard you allude to it with like the shadow that you let go of. So I was just wondering if you have any tangible strategies for the shadow that you let go of and how you choose to do that and find success with that.
Such an OT question. Tangible strategies. Just a really big pair of scissors. You just cut it off. So sometimes it feels like a shadow that follows me. Sometimes it feels like a layer that is layered on top of my activity, right? That layer of guilt, of like taking time for myself when I could be doing more, or even making certain choices that I think some people would label as selfish, but I label as self-care. I think this feeds directly into the self-compassion piece. If I check in with myself and I am like, I'm doing the best that I can with what I've been given the environment that I'm in, right? And given the energy that I have to deal with this, sometimes that's enough of like a logical reasoning to be able to cut away some of the guilt that I think I feel. But I think the bigger piece, is actually more about, the Audre Lorde quote kind of comes to mind about self-care, like this idea that my parents, and I've actually asked them this is a fabulous exercise, by the way, to ask your parents, like why they do what they do for you or why they, made the decisions that they made. It's wild. So I've asked them, like, what are your hopes for me, right? Or like, why did you sacrifice all of that stuff, right? And I actually asked this question to parents of students coming in for orientation, like first years and transfers. I get to talk with some of the groups of parents about, their incoming students and all that kind of stuff. And I asked them, like, if you were to define success for your student, what would you say it is, right? And sometimes parents start off with like, well, they need to go to class, they need to get good grades, they need to graduate. I'm like, yes, great, good. But why, right? The why is always the core of everything, every question. And usually, the parents are able to boil it down to pretty much the same answer every single session that I do this. And the answer is the same as the answer that my parents gave me, which is, I just want my kids to be safe and happy. Safe and happy, that's it. I don't need them to make the most money, I just need to have them make enough to know that they're safe, and they're gonna be safe, right? I don't need them to have the best job, I just want them to have a job that they feel good about, that they feel good in, right? And I want them to have friendships that feed into them, that make them feel good about themselves. So the why, like when I ask my parents, like, why do you sacrifice, or why did you sacrifice all of this stuff, right? The answer is so that you could be safe and happy. You could live a life that's safe and happy. If that's the ultimate goal, then me pushing myself to the extremes is not safe or happy. So even though we think of things as like do more to be happier, that's not actually the case. And I think that by taking time for myself, I'm actually I'm working more towards the core of what they actually wanted, which is the safe and happy part. Did that answer your question? Okay. Good, I'm glad. Sometimes I lose track.
All right, another question from the audience.
Uh-oh.
My question is,
Yeah.
how did relationships and like relationship building help you in like your life story and your story making, if that? And then like, how did you build and cultivate those relationships?
Ooh. How did they help you, and how did you build on them? How did they help you, and how did you build on them? Okay. Oops. I think that when I came to USC actually as an undergrad, I found my first group. I had a best friend in high school, but I think I found my first group of people that made me feel like I truly belonged in college. And I think having that first semblance of like real friendships, like intentional friendships, not friendships of convenience, not friendships of whatever else, but like actual real deep connection kind of relationships. I think that fed into this idea that I could be like somebody who had these kinds of friendships. I could be somebody who could hang out with other people and feel just like totally comfortable in my own skin. Like that opened up that possibility. And one of those friends was, ended up being my partner. We almost broke up the friend group, but we didn't. And I think one of the things that I'm actually really thankful to Scott for is, we talk about like, building relationships or like growing from them. Like, I think we've learned a lot from each other, but, yes, nod, please. Thank you. Just, even if it's for show. But I think, like, we've learned a lot from each other, but I changed. Like, this is my indicator of being in a good friendship or a good relationship that is, like, has been really, I think, growth-oriented or has been really valuable for me. The way that I changed, like, I liked the way that I changed. You know what I mean? I think I learned to communicate better over time. I think I've learned, like, how to show reciprocal love. You know what I mean? So I think it's interesting because I don't know if anybody watches Love is Blind on Netflix. Maybe not this season because as the seasons have progressed, they've been getting worse and worse. But the original seasons of Love is Blind fascinated me because the premise is, can you build a relationship and can you love somebody without ever physically seeing them, right? Can you recognize their humanity? Can you understand them before, and then of course commit to them and marry them, whatever, before you meet them? That's the drama part. But I think that's actually a little bit of what I experienced was because we were friends first, I feel like I got to know Scott, the person, and then that built a foundation for whatever came afterwards, right? So I don't know if I answered your question. What was the?
Yeah, just like any type of relationship.
Any type of relationship?
I think you got to the question.
It's not just about love, right? Or like romantic love. I think my friends have taught me a lot about like, we have been through a lot of like ups and downs. There was a few points at which I think our friendship was rocky, but I think one of the things that I really experienced that brought us closer was after that rockiness, I don't think we explicitly said this, but we really kind of forgave each other because we had both wronged each other. And that forgiveness actually brought us closer. So I think it's really about just like, I don't know, finding the people that you're willing to go through those rocky times with. And then if both of you are able to see on the back end, this was a way to bring us closer, right? You fight, you come closer. It's like Encanto. You fight, you come closer. Then those are the people you want to spend more time with, right? Because they're willing to put in the investment in you. Great.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Come on down. And of course, folks can just attack her at the end and ask her. There you go.
So you talked a little bit about how important some of the stories that we are given from society can be to us, and about Sixth Sense and Onion, stuff like that. And I wonder, from your personal experience or like experiencing other people, when you see someone letting go of those stories, how do they deal with that change in some ways? Because for some of us, it's so big of like all of us that like, oh, success, or like, we need to do certain things to feel worthy. that one is gone, that's like something that needs to be fought almost. And how did you or how have you seen other people do?
Oh, such a good question. What is your name, by the way? You? Ashley, nice to meet you. Thank you for that question. What fills that void? If you let go of that social narrative that you need to achieve or, whatever, in order to feel worthy, then what fills its place? I think, actually coming back to your question, I relied heavily on my friends and my partners, or my partner, to answer that question for me, because they were the first ones to fill in that void. And I don't think I've completely let go. I don't think this is like an exorcism where it's like, I've let go of social norms and I'm done and, I've moved on with my life. Like, I don't think that's the case. But I think as I started to question those norms and whether I wanted to accept them for myself or not, then this question of, well, then where do you get your self-worth from, right? The language and the proof to answer that question came first from my friends and my family and my partner. And I don't think that's the case for everybody, but I think that's why relationships are so important. It's because I didn't have the language or, the proof myself to begin with. So I needed them to tell me and to show me why I was worthy of all, worthy of love, worthy of all these different things, worthy of acceptance and value. And then I started to believe it. So they crafted that narrative for me first, which I am very, very lucky to have had them, because if I didn't, there would have been absolutely a blank space, right? So thank you for that question. That was really good.
All right, well, that's it, folks. On behalf of the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life, I want to thank you all for coming out today and listening in to Ashley's story. And I hope you'll join us again on March 20th when we'll hear from Elizabeth Weiss from the Viterbi School. Same place, same time, different menu. Let's give it up for Ashley.
Yay! Thank you for coming.